Welcome to Negotiation and Conflict Management class. This is a series of lectures that are recorded, and I hope you enjoy this class. As mentioned before, the name of the class is Negotiation and Conflict Management by Stephen Humphrey, PhD. He's the one who wrote this course. Brilliant person, brilliant professor. And the course has some objectives. Okay, let's see. The first objective here is to develop and master negotiation skills and strategy, to distinguish among strategies, to modify our current behaviors, to drop irrelevant and counterproductive strategies, to develop and enhance effective strategies. This is hands down the best class in the entire university, in my opinion. And I didn't write it. I just enjoy teaching it. This is the kind of thing we've been negotiating since we were little kids. The first time your parents said to you, it's time to go to bed, and you wanted to stay up a few more minutes and get another cookie, you were a negotiator and a master negotiator. This is the class where we take advantage of learning from our peers, from practicing in a slightly less hostile environment than the rest of the world, and where we can actually analyze, modify, and develop. I give you, basically how it works is, I'm going to give you dossiers. There are 5 different negotiations we'll be doing, one every other week. I will give you a dossier and you will read the dossier. You will become the character. And then I will put you in groups. First, groups of 2, then groups of 2.5, then groups of 4, and then finally in groups of 6, where you will learn to negotiate first on a dyad level, and then continue into more complex negotiations. So we'll be looking at the theory, and we'll be looking at the practice. The theory through our reading, the practice through the practicing it. And we'll be analyzing those as well. We'll be looking to secure agreements, as I said, 2 or more independent parties. So the focus here is on understanding the behavior of individuals, groups, organizations, all within the context of competitive situations. The syllabus you'll want to read, and I will know if you read it, but it's the contract. All negotiations come to a point where a contract has to be written. And that's exactly what this is. Please read it. All of the readings will be posted here in Canvas. I'll show you that in just a second here. And you must purchase a course pack. And you must bring that course pack and the receipt to the next class. Now, if you look here at Canvas, you'll see right there, it says course readings. So when you click on that, those are the negotiating dossiers. And by purchasing that coupon from the bookstore, you will in fact be purchasing the right to participate in these negotiations. Also, you'll see there's an introduction discussion form. You want to introduce yourself to your classmates. There's a tutorial if you don't already know by now how to use Canvas. And then you'll see under readings, there are also theory readings. These are different than the dossiers. Those are actually academic articles that we were able to procure for you for free. So when you purchase that coupon, what you're doing at the bookstore is getting the right to participate in the actual negotiation simulations that we'll be doing for the semester. Now, at any point, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at jbl15@psu.edu or ask me in the class. So the structure is very straightforward. We have a schedule. The readings are every week. There's going to be exercises every other week. And in the bye weeks, you'll be analyzing. You'll be learning to analyze for yourself other negotiations and then your own negotiation. Expect at least 5 or 6 hours of prep for this class per week. And this, of course, is all in the syllabus as well. The structure is very straightforward. We have weekly assignments, You'll be reading for the week, and then there'll be activities. You must participate in all the negotiations, obviously. That's class participation. And then also involving yourself in the class. And there's also reading quizzes. Attendance can only hurt you if you don't, not if you do. Participation, same deal as attendance. Also on the Canvas, you'll see after I make a video of the lecture, I will load that with the PowerPoint slides for the presentation so that you can have access to both. Reading quizzes, there's 2 exams, a midterm and a final. And it's very straightforward. This is all laid out in the syllabus. The whole point, the grading is based on a point system. So there's 500 total points. Whatever your points add up to comes out to your hardcore, that's your grade. The reading quizzes, 100 points worth of those. Negotiating performance, 100 points worth of those. The exams, each one's 100 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a final negotiation analysis. That's your final paper. That's worth 100 points. So again, if you have any questions with any of this, email me right away, jbl15@psu or through Canvas. I'm in 451 Business Building. My Zoom office hours, Tuesday, Wednesdays, 4:30 to 7 p.m. By appointment. But I'm more than happy to meet with you, at other times as well. So we have a couple rules here in negotiating. Rule number 1 in negotiating is you ought to make sure that you're negotiating with someone who can negotiate. Translation to that is question politely authority. And hopefully you do this with all of your teachers. You ask them for some kind of resume or to apply to you to teach you because you're the customer in every respect. So my resume, and I'm applying now to teach you. You can find me on the LinkedIn. Feel free to LinkedIn me up. Feel free to look at any of my contacts. My background in my resume, I went to Villanova University for undergrad. Arabic studies was my major. I lived in the Middle East as an exchange student and learned how to haggle. And I also learned a lot about negotiation because I was also a political science major. So I learned an awful lot about, you want to see negotiating in politics, you should see what goes on in the Middle East. When I graduated from college, I ended up, my first job, 3 years, I was on Wall Street. And I saw a lot of negotiating there and learned how that all worked on the floor. And I was a bond analyst. After there, I left and I joined, actually my dad was starting a company and I joined and became a full partner. I bought a full partnership. I was there for 7 years and retired when we sold the business. But we were a contract manufacturing firm, meaning we contracted all of the things that we sold. The company was a $5 million a year in sales company. But we had to contract every aspect of different components that we then assembled and then manufactured. I will tell you stories about that. The name of the company was Packaging Network. While I was there, I went to Wharton for graduate school, 2-year program, and I graduated from there, and I learned a lot there. Now, 20 years ago, I actually started a flight school here at University Park Airport, and I've been running that. Funny, interesting thing about both companies, Packaging Network, we had 4 full-time employees and did $5 million a year. And at Snapflight USA, we have no employees. And somehow we've actually flown with over 1,000 pilots in the 20 years that we've been here. We've been a very interesting negotiating experience. Anyway, 10 years ago, I was offered a job here at Penn State, and I've been teaching here for 10 years in negotiation and also in entrepreneurship. And while I was here, it's funny because when I first started here, I fell in love with Penn State students, and I wanted to be a Penn State student as well and a Penn State graduate. So I actually got another master's in workforce education and learning performance here, which is what I'm doing with you, right? I'm teaching you workforce education, how to use these things in the real world. And so I graduated with a master's, and I also am a Penn State graduate, and I bleed blue. Anyway, that's my background, and you should decide right now whether or not you think that's an adequate background to teach you a negotiation, because there are others that teach the course, and you should take an instructor that you you feel most confident with. Anyway, so that's question authority. Make up your mind. Now let's take a look at what the course is going to be all about. It's about negotiation. So what is negotiation? It's a very good question. Negotiation, and if you take a look here, every time I have a video that I call out here, I'll point it out to you, and you can take a look at it at your convenience. I'll brief you on it, but I can't actually put commercial videos in this video and then upload it to YouTube for you to have access to it. So I'll just point them out. So you want to take a look at this one here, the best negotiation ever, which really is a great example of what a negotiation can look like. If you're familiar with Police Story, this is a negotiation where the quality of the negotiation is based entirely on values that do not exist, that simply are pulled out of imagination and into existence. And that's really where we're going with this course. We are going to be, negotiation is about two things: strategizing, coming up with a plan, and looking for values that exist that no one has yet mentioned. We're looking for the diamonds in the rough. There are two forms of negotiation we'll discuss: distributive negotiation, which has to do with how you split a pie, and integrative negotiation, which is how do you grow the pie before you split the pie? How do you find the value in things? And another video you should take a look at here, The Office. And if you look at the two videos, you will see a distinct difference between these two videos. The second one here, The Office, you'll see basically what we call sneaky tricks. And a lot of the times you think you're negotiating. You're not negotiating. What you are in is a situation where people are posturing and pretending to negotiate, and they are not negotiating with you in any way, shape, or form, or let's just say you're not negotiating with them. It's very important that you are able to distinguish, and believe me, we'll spend a couple of sessions going through every sneaky and every dirty trick in the book, every one of them. Not so that you think they're good ideas, but so you can identify them. And when you see them, when people are pulling sneaky tricks on you, you're not negotiating. That's drama. Anyway, take a look at those two videos. The first one's actually negotiating in a strange, bizarre, and funny way. The second one is, that's how you know you're not negotiating. So how do you learn to negotiate? How do you do it? It's absolutely crystal clear, super simple. It all has to do with change in behaviors, in motivations, in outcomes, and understanding frames. Here's a 6,000-year-old framing question for you. You know what these are, right? I'm assuming that everybody knows what these are. They are pyramids. And my question for you is, when the designers designed these, were they meant to look as though they were going from the earth to the sky, or were they designed to look as if they had come from the sky to the ground? Were they in fact built bottom up or top down? Do you see my question here? From the bottom up or the top down? So this is a 6,000-year-old question, and this is called a frame. A frame. How are you looking at this thing? Now, have you decided on an answer? I'll bet you have. I'll bet some of us have decided on the answer that we think probably is least likely, because we think the teacher here is pulling a fast one. Well, in fact, you are right, because Imhotep, when designing the pyramids, they were designed to look as if they had actually plopped onto the earth. And this is a frame, something called a game frame. So imagine that. They're basically designed to look like big dog poops. That's about what they were. That's called a frame. Why change? Because we need to change to understand the rules for negotiation, the behaviors in negotiations, the motivations for negotiations, because all of these affect the outcomes. So who do we change? Who do we change? Can you change somebody else? Not the other party. It's about you. It's about changing your frame. So we're going to reiterate rule number 1. Make sure you're negotiating with someone who can negotiate and that you're actually negotiating with them. Put another way, question authority. Second, rule number 2 for today, we've got a couple of these. We've got 5 rules actually. You've got to make sure you know why you're negotiating. You must gather information about yourself as well as gathering information about the other side. You need to learn, and we will learn how to estimate or guesstimate interests. The translation for this, another way of putting it, is you must be able to qualify the customer. All right, now look, you're all thinking to yourself, what is this guy talking about? What are we talking about here? That's not what negotiating is. All right. You probably have heard these, okay? Qualities of be a patient listener, never look bored, wait for the other person to reveal any political opinion, agree, let the other person reveal religious things and agree. Don't talk about sex unless they do first. Don't discuss illnesses, don't pry, never boast, don't be untidy, never get drunk. And you're saying, yeah, see, those sound like the things that you want to be as a great negotiator. Well, actually, interesting point here. These are actually I kid you not, the 10 commandments for con men. Yes, I am not kidding. Count Victor Lustig, con man of considerable note, wanted by approximately 45 law enforcement agencies, had 25 known aliases, had actually swindled $5,000 from Al Capone. In fact, he posed as a government official in Paris, took 5 businessmen on a tour of the Eiffel Tower, and then sold it to them for 7,300 tons of scrap metal. So these are, in fact, and where I got this from, this is really great, fakes, frauds, and other malarkey. These are the laws, the 10 commandments of the con man. So that is not really about negotiating. In fact, a lot of times when you see some of that stuff, they are going to fall under what we call the unctuous sneaky tricks. So why do we negotiate? Because everything is negotiable. But remember this. What are the possible outcomes? We need to think of that first. And I'm going to leave you with I'm going to give you an interesting quotation from a famous Roman philosopher, Seneca, who said, if the sailor knows not the port for which he sails, no wind is a good wind. So you must know where you are headed. And that is how, here are your outcomes, right? Here's the possible outcomes. What are the possible outcomes of a negotiation? 1, you don't get what you want. 2, you did get what you want. 3, you got more than what you wanted. Now I got a quick story for you here, and this is what we call a metaphor or an allegory. It's a small example of what I'm trying to talk about. And here's a question for you. Okay, this is the lawnmower man story. This is a story of a lawnmower. Yes, that lawnmower right there, nicknamed Mow, as in to mow the lawn. So when I moved to my house here in the country, I live in the country, but I'm not from the country. I'm from the city. I grew up in the city outside of Philadelphia in the suburbs, never mowed a lawn in my life till I moved here. And when we moved here, the house actually came with Mow, the lawnmower. So I was terrible at cutting the lawn. I actually got bursitis. I actually got tendonitis in both of my arms the first time I cut the lawn. I was so scared holding onto the lawnmower. But it breaks. Lawnmowers break. Now out here, people have to cut their own lawns. People talk about each other if they're not cutting their own lawns. You also have to fix your own lawnmower. But unfortunately, when it comes to fixing lawnmowers, my specialty in fixing lawnmowers, basically, I will make things more broken than they were before I started trying to fix it. Yes, that's me, the handyman. Enter Don's power equipment, Don's small equipment. So the lawnmower broke. I tried to fix it. It made it worse. I tried to fix it again. It wasn't moving. And I made a phone call to Don's equipment. And I call up Don's small equipment. And Don comes and he picks up my tractor, picks up Mo. Bye, Mo. So 2-3 days go by and I call Don. Don, how's Mo? How's my mower? Don says, I said, did you fix it? He said, I don't want to fix it. I'm not going to fix this mower. I'm going to take this mower out back and I'm going to shoot it and put it out of its misery. I said, oh, geez, Don, I got to cut my lawn. What am I going to do? He said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. All right, I got conditions. I'll sell you my mower that I use here. It's nothing special, but it's a good sound mower. I use it all the time to cut my yard right here. And I'll sell it to you. I'll sell it to you for $500. But there's a conditions. The condition number one is you've got to go get your wife and you got to tell her that she's got to get your tools and hide them from you. You're never allowed to work on this. Okay. I don't want you working on it. Well, I was thrilled, of course, because I never wanted to work on a lawnmower again. I didn't do such a great job with Mo. So now here's the thing. I don't know anything about lawnmowers. I know very little about lawns. You know what I do know about? I know about small businesses, and I also know about negotiating. When Don said $500, and you should try this yourself because it always works. I know that a small business thrives on cash, right? That's, my flight school is a small business. As soon as cash comes in, it's used to pay for stuff. It's off the books. It disappears if necessary. And so this was my first negotiating question. Don, is that your cash price? This is a pivotal moment because this is when you have just created value. Do I really personally care less if I use a credit card and then just pay my credit card back immediately to pay for the lawnmower? Or does it make any difference to me if I just stop by on the way to Don's and hit the cash machine and just pull out $500? Doesn't matter at all to me. There is no value difference to me. But I know about small businesses, and my bet was there probably was. Well, Don turns right around and says, "Oh, cash. I'll tell you what. Cash price. I'll give it to you for $400." All right. Now, my next question is, you ready for my next question? I went to go see Don. I brought him an envelope. I brought him an envelope with cash in it. Here's my question. How much cash was in the envelope? All right. Think about it for a second. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, $200, $300. You're looking for a hardball solution. I'll bet you one or two of you are thinking to yourself, $400. The guy said $400. But see, here's where negotiating begins. I know that I just created $100 of value for Don that meant nothing to me, literally did not exist at all. Just like the Drummond video, the police squad video, didn't exist. So when I went to go see Don, in the envelope, $500. What does that mean? Now remember, you remember, he said, you got to go, I don't want you working on this. And you know what? I didn't want to work on it. But what I do want is I want really good customer service. And I want somebody who thinks of me as a person they want to come and take care of right away. When I call him on the phone, Don came to pick up my tractor the next morning, no matter how busy he was, because I just created $100 worth of free customer service. Because why? First of all, Don knows that I'm the cash guy, and I know about small businesses. You know, maybe that cash went in his pocket and never ended up seeing the IRS or his wife, spouse, or whatever. I don't know. All I know is small businesses thrive on cash. So that is called creating value. So again, what are the possible outcomes in a conflict? You don't get what you want. You do get what you want. And sometimes you get more than what you want. Now, I'll take you through the circumflex that's actually in your first reading here. There's a little tricky here. I just want to make sure I go over it before you read it. We'll always go over your reading before or after and make sure that we cover everything that could possibly end up in a quiz. So the agreement circumflex, this is in your reading. What does it mean? Well, you know, it's a way of taking two an independent and dependent concepts and putting them next to each other and seeing where they relate to each other. And so we go around the wheel here, and we realize on one side we have a place called position accommodation. Okay, and position accommodation means we accommodate the position, right? And there are two different ways of going here. Parties' initial demands on the issues are accommodated. Now, compromise, and remember this, compromise is the only dirty word in negotiating, because compromise means meeting halfway, meaning neither party is fulfilled. Neither party is happy. If you have two people in a compromise, they are going to get divorced. They are going to split up. Why? Because neither one of them is satisfied, and they're both naturally going to be looking for satisfaction elsewhere. Log rolling is kind of like that, but not. Log rolling, you can give up on one issue in exchange for getting what you want on a more important issue. Case in point, cash. I didn't care. I gave up the issue of whether I would give him cash or a credit card. It did not matter to me. He ended up getting more value because cash was more important to him. So in this case, you have to have clear priorities and be able to give up on less important or maybe non-important issues. Now, I jotted these down here for you. You can take a look at the points. So here's the thing. What about the other side? What about position achievement? Well, each party gets exactly what's stated in the initial demands. One way is to modify, right? You change the resource pool to fit the demands. Each party gets the resources that they wanted. But the other way of going is to expand, to increase the resource pool. Each party gets the resources that they wanted that way, just expanding. Now, at the top of the agreement circumflex, you've got interest achievement. This is where both parties' underlying interests are met. This is where we really want to be. We really want to be in a place where the interests get taken care of. We're going to talk about two concepts, positions and interests. It's all about the interests. In a bridge, you have a novel alternative that comes out of nowhere to satisfy the parties. The underlying interests are totally satisfied. Cost cutting, a little bit different. Reasons for resistances are met and overcome. Interests can be addressed differently there. And lastly, quadrant 4, interest substitution. Now, this is where we give up an interest in exchange for something else. There's a superordinate where a bilateral interest is substituted, and both sides give up their initial interests in exchange for new interests, or compensation. One side is indemnified for the substitution. One side trades compensation for the interest. So this is coming from your, hopefully this makes perfect sense to you now. This is coming from the reading. It is a very interesting way of classifying the outcomes and the negotiation situations. Now, characteristics of any negotiation. There's two or more parties. There's a conflict of needs and desires between the two or more parties. The parties negotiate because they think they could get a better deal. And I'll tell you something. Sometimes the best things happen when the situation is hanging by a thread. And sometimes it's right before it's about to snap. Sometimes it's after you're done and you go back in. But in this case, negotiations almost always involve some degree of give and take. Now, let's give you a quick example here of what quizzes look like. So for instance here, there'd be simple type questions, according to Peter Carnival, you don't even know who that is, blah, blah, blah. There's 3 perspectives on creativity and conflict. And we already know well, we don't know because we didn't actually, this isn't actually in this particular reading. It's just showing you examples here. Oh, here you go. Modifying the resource pie. Moderately complex issue-based solution falls into which quadrant of the achievement circumflex? Exactly. All right, the readings, what did they look like? Oh, that's right. Here's actually the reading here on person, process, and product. Yeah, so these are actually, it's interesting because all the questions from the quizzes are verbatim. They come right out of the reading. In fact, there you go. So there's your person, process, and product. That's answer number 1, and position achievement. There's answer number 2. So again, there you go. We know where they came from now. We saw them in the reading. It's very straightforward. I'd like you to take another look at another negotiation, and this is one that comes from Monty Python. It's called the haggle scene. A lot of times when we're in haggles, we think of ourselves as being in some kind of a negotiation. Usually, I mean, a haggle is a kind of negotiation. It's splitting the middle, but it's not really. It's really not a. You're not really expanding anything when that happens. But take a look at the video, and I think you'll have a good look. I lived in the Middle East; it was just like that in the markets. Anyway, characteristics of a negotiating situation: parties search for agreement rather than fight openly, capitulate, break off contact, take their dispute to a third party. And successful negotiation involves managing tangibles, the prices, resolution of tangibles. So, what type of relationship are we actually interested in to facilitate negotiations? Dependent, independent, or something called interdependent. And that brings us to a very interesting little video here called Lando's Deal. Take a look at that. And you're going to see, when you're in that situation, where are you? Take a look. You'll have a good laugh. And I'll tell you, when you find yourself there, you are in the place of non-negotiating. Because the negotiation parties need each other to achieve their preferred outcomes or objectives. It's called interdependence. And that interdependent goals are an important aspect of negotiation. Now, it's going to go one way or the other. You're going to go win-lose, I win, you lose, or win-win. And that's what we're always looking for when we can find it, because that brings us to the interdependence, where parties are characterized by interlocking goals. Having interdependent goals does not mean that everyone wants or needs exactly the same thing. In fact, a mix of convergent and conflicting goals characterizes many of the interdependent relationships. And that brings us to another way of looking at win-lose and win-win, or lose-lose. We have another way of looking at it, what we call zero-sum situations and non-zero-sum or integrative mutual gain situation. What you'll find is that in most negotiations, we use both of these regularly. We break issues up, we unbundle issues, and we rebundle issues. We find situations where there are multiple issues, which we find by asking questions. Some we split right in the middle. Others, you trade off. I'll give you the cash, you give me the customer service. So there is both value claiming, value creation, and are there differences? Of course there are. How can we claim value? Well, we have to claim value in issues where it's 50-50. How do we create it? By asking questions. The opportunities to win are great. We're going to have a claiming value situation where it's zero sum, distributive, and creating value where it's non-zero sum. And one last piece of this this whole thing here. Most actual negotiations, like I said, there's a combination of it because there's usually more than one issue, and your goal is to ask questions and create issues. You recognize situations that require more of one approach than the other, and you must be versatile, and you must be perceptive. That is it. That is the key. What are we going to be doing here in this class? We're going to be looking for differences across the board, across issues, by asking questions, finding differences in interest, judgments about the future, risk tolerance, and time preferences. Okay, so this is what we have going here for this particular class. There's only going to be one lecture a week, and your reading is, as I already pointed out, you got to week 1 and 2, and the quiz is going to be on things like distributive bargaining tactics, whether they're ethical, how important information is in a negotiation, important for steps of the negotiator, interesting research about the advantages of making a first offer, and resistance points and its significance to closing the deal. So I hope you're enjoying this this class so far. I hope you're buying in, you're into the class. I look forward to moving forward with you in this, the greatest of all the classes in the university. And if you have any questions at all, email me right away at jbl15@psu.edu. Thank you.